Thank you for your time and attention today. People say that there are a lot of brilliant minds in the room, and to build on that, we too are going to be talking about housing today in LA. It's a big issue. But first, we were kind of curious, how many of you are from Los Angeles, just with a raise of hands? What do you mean by from? Well, yeah, and then how many, and if you guys can shout out some of the neighborhoods that you live in now.
Long Beach, Echo Park,
Cool. Okay, so the big spread of LA, excellent, excellent. We are going to talk to you about why our group selected our North Star, who some of the key stakeholders are, what we plan to do about it, particularly some information about our socially innovative model. And you know, I'm Lori, as I mentioned, Lori Nascimento. I'm the philanthropic partner with our team, with our collaborative, and I work at the largest healthcare foundation in California, the California Endowment. And oh yeah, first. And no matter where you live, it's really important to be part of a community, to be able to share your voice and agency with others. And one of the things that happened after the tragic assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King in April of 1968 was Lyndon B. Johnson's words on what more can they do in order to achieve brotherhood and equality amongst all Americans. Next. And what resulted was really pushing out and having approved the Fair Housing Act, which is part of the Civil Rights Act. The effort really started in 1966, but it took this event to actually have the act passed. So Lyndon B. Johnson wanted to build on the grief, the anger, and the sorrow of people in the country to really push through the civil rights law with Congress. And we're going to play a little clip from when he signed this.
In the year 1966, I asked a distinguished group of citizens that were interested in human rights to meet me in the cabinet room in the White House. In their presence that afternoon, I signed a message to the Congress. That message called for the enactment, and I quote, of the first effective federal law against discrimination in the sale and the rental of housing in the United States of America. Few in the nation, and the record will show that very few in that room that afternoon, believed that fair housing would in our time become the unchallenged law of this land. And indeed, this bill has had a long and stormy trip. We did not get it in 1966. We pled for it again in 1967, but the Congress took no action that year. We asked for it again this year, and now, at long last, this afternoon, its day has come. I do not exaggerate when I say that the proudest moments of my presidency have been times such as this, when I have signed into law the promises of a century.
Thank you. So despite the passage of the Fair Housing Act 50 years ago, which this year marks 50-year anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act, we still see discriminatory practices. And while it's illegal, lending is still not fair. So, you know, according to some research earlier this year, African Americans and Latinos continue to be denied mortgages at far higher rates than whites in 61 metropolitan areas. So again, this is the 50th anniversary, and we still see a lot of the discriminatory practices today. So what is it about home ownership? Why are we focusing on that? So, you know, another question for all of you, how many of you own your own home or a condominium? You don't, little girl. And how many of you would like to own your own home or condo? Okay, great. And why? What are some of the reasons why you want to own your own home? Great. So we know there are a lot of benefits from home ownership. So in addition to being able to be more connected to your community and civically engaged, there's also evidence that there are improved health outcomes by owning your own home, and more educational equity and achievement by owning your own home, because often families who are forced to move due to higher rents, the kids have to switch schools each time. It also causes a lot of stress on people. So one of the, so we know that there are a lot of benefits from various research, including the Center for Real Estate Studies, that suggests that really home ownership reduces stress and has benefits. So we can go to the next slide. So if we look at home ownership rates, in the US it's about 70%, and then when we look at California, it dips down to about 54%. In LA, we know is really a difficult market. Home ownership rates are closer to 45%. And now when we look at who owns homes in California, we looked at a study that really put together about 4 years of data, and we saw that whites, non-Hispanic, were actually about 1/3 more likely to own their homes than African American residents. And the disparities that exist today can be traced back to public policies, both implicit and explicit. So from slavery to Jim Crow, from redlining to school segregation, and from mass incarceration to environmental racism, policies have impeded African Americans from having the access to realize the American dream of home ownership. And we know that these disparities exist due to systemic racism and historical discrepancies and decades of discrimination, particularly around the housing and mortgage discriminations. So for this reason, we appreciate the previous presentations around the importance of housing and alternative ways to think about increasing the housing stock, but our focus is really, if you want to go to the next slide, our North Star is to achieve more equitable rates of home ownership in Los Angeles County among historically excluded residents. And just to quickly review the facts before you hear from some of the partners in our plan. So prior to 1968, there existed really gross and blatant discrimination on housing practices in the US. And then following the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Fair Housing Act was passed, which made it illegal to discriminate. But then now, 50 years later, we're still seeing clear disparities in ownership rates among race and ethnicity due to the years of discriminatory practices. So it's likely to take many more years for us to see more equitable home ownership rates, but we propose to implement a new strategy, which you're going to hear about soon, to close the gap by at least 10 percentage points in the next 10 years, so by 2028. We're going to be measuring progress towards our North Star by reviewing annual home ownership data in Los Angeles County to benchmark our progress and to make needed adjustments to the plan. The plan is really built with a cross-sectoral partnership of representatives, you're going to meet more in just a moment, who really elevated the voices and the call for action from their respective constituents. And you'll hear more about this community real estate fund in a few minutes. But Ken is going to help us understand how we got to this place where we are right now.
Good evening. I'm Ken Billups again. I represent the building trades. I represent the people. As part of our quest to going to the North Star, we must empower the people. In that regard, the people in this case we're targeting are the employees. So I represent the employee unions. But first, to better serve the employees, we must understand where they came from, understand our employees, understand the historical facts. What is redlining? Who can tell me, anybody familiar with redlining or the history of redlining? Who's just generally familiar with it? Well, redlining is essentially racial discrimination back in the 1930s, where lenders literally put a red line around particular neighborhoods, primarily minority neighborhoods, and pretty much had very illegal lending practices, where individuals from those communities did not have access to the same loans, reinvestment into their particular communities. And for this sake, it now has impacts 80 years later. You saw the Fair Lending Act that happened in 1968, but almost 50 years later, there's still communities that are impacted by this. This data right here is a new study that shows the neighborhoods that were impacted. You have the best, the green, which you see the trajectory going up, The blue represents the still desirable neighborhoods, and you see the trajectory. Yellow, those are the declining neighborhoods. And then red are the red line neighborhoods, which were deemed hazardous to the lenders. They did not want to give out loans. And you see the trajectory, and this impacts, to this day, economically, how neighborhoods are shaped. Our access to housing, and for our sake, home ownership. The study also shows that 3 out of the 4 neighborhoods that were redlined in the 1930s are still impacted to this day, 80 years later. 3 out of the 4 neighborhoods. They shape how wealth comes to families and who has access to home ownership. So we think as representing the employees, we feel like we have power in numbers. To move forward, to get towards that North Star, we must organize. And so naturally, on behalf of the union, we typically offer certain benefits such as access to higher wages, protection for your employer, and regular benefits that you have in the average union. But why not home ownership? As I said, yeah, wages, collective participation, health and retirement benefits that we're all typically used to. But why not home ownership? Why not housing? Why not our largest cost or expense, I would say? And so for that sake, we feel like that we can empower our employees, negotiate with the employers. And with that, we have a very powerful solution to get us towards that North Star. With this, we have collaboration, collective impact, in which we get the buy-in from various stakeholders, employers, developers, to get us closer to the North Star. And today we have Mr. Jesse, our developer expert, that will give you the details of this magnificent solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you all of you. My name is Jesse Ibarra, and I'm a community developer. And I'm going to walk you guys through this, I guess, socially innovative financial model that we've created. We called on partners from various sectors, and collectively, we've come up with this. And it's very interesting. I'm going to go back one slide. And so, as you can see, there's all these different partners involved. The Community Real Estate Fund is the key. So this mission-driven fund will be comprised of various board members who represent all the various sectors, everyone from nonprofits, local governments, financial institutions. Their main investments are going to be all types of real estate-related activity, but they will emphasize on home ownership type projects. But we're also going to diversify. There's going to be infill projects financed, mixed use, mixed income, but affordable for sale is our key primary goal for this particular fund. The administration will include everything from real estate acquisition and disposition, obviously. We're going to issue and review requests for proposals. We will issue and repurchase shares. We will do asset management, set benchmarks, and monitor outcomes. So what we plan on doing is taxing all the largest employers, okay? So anyone with 500 or more employees will be taxed, similar to what's going on in Seattle, but not, right? So I don't know, any of you guys familiar with what's going on in Seattle? They put a head tax on all the largest employers and everybody's losing their mind. So different than that is we're not going to go across the board and tax every single employee. We're going to tax only the low to moderate income employees. And we're not taxing them directly, we're taxing the employer for these employees. However, keep it going, if they implement an employer-assisted housing program, and depending on how robust this program is, they can receive up to 90% back in the shares of that fund. So the employer actually becomes an owner in their communities. Okay? On top of that, the employees benefit through having these programs available on site. We don't want to leave out every other business, right? So although it's only the largest employers who will be taxed on this, any employer, regardless of size, will have an opportunity and be incentivized to invest in this particular fund through tax credits. However, they will need to be long-term investments, and they will also need to implement a qualified housing benefits program. Labor unions, as Ken mentioned, are a key role in organizing and activating the workforce and really trying to persuade the employers in implementing the most robust programs they can possibly think of. Community members, now this is my favorite part, because what we're talking about is trying to close this gap. So a lot of us don't have the time to go back to school. We don't have the opportunity to go and make more money. We're essentially stuck in certain cases. This is giving low to moderate income residents and employees an opportunity to become owners also in their community and hopefully become homeowners. And I'll tell you how. So they'll be able to essentially earn shares through various projects and programs. One is financial capacity building. So if they take financial capacity building workshops, estate planning, things like that, they'll earn shares when they complete these courses, okay? Also, if they volunteer in the community, they'll be able, any volunteerism, they'll earn shares. And we'll work with nonprofits, educational institutions, and others to get them certified to be able to offer these certificates to ensure that they're completing these hours and nobody's cheating, right? It's accountability. And hopefully the employers can provide these on-site and even be participating in the community events along with the employees. So once they earn these shares, they could either sell them on the private market and get cash for them, they can keep them and watch them accrue, or they can trade them in as a down payment to any CREF-funded projects. The government's role is clear. It's going to be to, implement the employer tax, but also they have a key role in facilitating partnerships between the employers and the service providers who are going to be providing the programs. They're going to help with land acquisition, oversight and accountability, and long-term investments. We also want our local governments and state and hopefully federal to all invest as well. Financial institutions are going to be incentivized to invest in this fund because they're going to earn CRA credit. Okay, if any investments that they put into this fund, they'll earn CRA credit. They'll have education and community engagement opportunities. They'll be able to restore trust back into the communities, which they've lost through redlining and through subprime mortgages. They can now make good loans to the underserved population, and they also can make money by providing capital to the developers. Nonprofits are going to play obviously a pivotal role in accountability, right? And so if you go in here, again, they're going to be the lead on some of these events. They're going to be administering the employer-assisted housing programs. They're going to be signing off hours. They really have a lot. But a really cool thing about this is that they also can gain capacity through building and partnering with private developers on these projects. Investors, now, we again want public and private investment. So not only the government, but we want public investors in there as well. And so we've seen other models that basically say you want impact investing, you can't get a rate of return. Well, this model allows for that impact investing, but still getting a rate of return back. And so if you go in here, what we're offering, and I took this directly from the Opportunity Fund, is that we're going to offer private investors for long-term investments of 10 years or more, they'll get a 15% basis increase on their capital gains, and if they put it into the fund, they will not have any capital gains on whatever they earn on the fund. And then last but not least is folks like me, developers. We desperately need funding for these types of projects. We need to not only build new housing, but we also need to restore our current infrastructure. And this is an opportunity for us to be able to do that. A lot of the funding that's currently out there is mostly multifamily, and so it doesn't allow us to do all that.
Hello everyone, my name is Blanca Pacheco, and I am an attorney, and I'm also on the Downey City Council. But in addition to that, as of yesterday, I am the interim president here at USC. So I am a large employer. And besides, I think USC does need a good attorney, right? So here at USC, we take pride in our community, we take pride in our image. We here at USC, we employ over 18,000 employees. And so we are one of the largest employers here in LA County. along with other educational institutions like community colleges, like UCLA, which is where I went, we can all, as employers, we can work together. We are, at USC, are committed to providing benefits to the residents, and these benefits are recruitment, retention, local workforce, stable workforce, and a productive workforce. What do I mean when I say that? I mean by having a local workforce, we are able to recruit that workforce. We're able to retain that workforce. We are able to have a stable workforce who is happy about their community. We have a workforce that is stable and wants their community to grow. But there are barriers that we as employers will encounter, such as our focus should not be within the real estate field. We are in the field of educating. We are an institution of learning. So many people will feel uncomfortable, many employers will feel uncomfortable being involved in the real estate market. They may feel that it shouldn't be our role to help others purchase a home. It shouldn't be our role to educate our employees. But what employers need to realize is by having, again, that local workforce, by having that workforce that is committed, that actually brings an advantage to the employer. And also, employers, any employers out there, keep in mind, you're not doing this alone. You're not at this alone. You're being partnered up with lenders and developers, and you're working towards creating equitable home ownership. One such developer that has agreed to partner up with us is Rick Caruso. He's a new chair of the USC Board of Trustees. He's a leading LA real estate developer and civic leader. One of the other barriers is tax implications. Who here likes paying more taxes? Nobody. So imagine for employers, it's the same thing. We don't like paying more taxes. And what many employers will do is they will threaten or may threaten to leave LA County. They may threaten to pass along these costs to the employees, to the students. But what we need to focus on is that we are creating an equitable future. We employers are making a better future. So this is a win-win-win-win for all of us, because we are all stakeholders in our community.
Blanca, thank you for your introduction. My name is Yoomee. I'm here representing the County Supervisor's Office today, and I am also here on behalf of the state and city. Today, I am here to announce the state, county, and city support of the Community Real Estate Fund. We in government realized a long time ago that sometimes we can't solve problems single-handedly. That is why we are happy to be part of this unprecedented partnership to promote home ownership in our community. There's a lot the government does to make positive change happen, but sometimes you just need to work together to bring about transformational change. In the past, there have been various home ownership programs, many of them possible through funding enacted by the federal government. The Community Real Estate Fund, on the other hand, isn't something conceived by bureaucrats and what they think over there is the best way for people. The Community Real Estate Fund is in the true sense a collective impact initiative that will directly impact the low to moderate income workers in our community. I want to acknowledge my colleagues in the state today for really taking leadership. This new tax on large businesses could not have been an easy decision for California. We are already known for high taxes, and we've lost businesses to other states because of it. However, this tax will directly benefit employees and create a healthier financial future for all low to moderate income employees in California. In addition, we in local government and the state feel confident that additional education that this new tax will systematize will really make Californians some of the most financially stable Americans in the United States, and more importantly, it will take us one step closer to being one of the most equitable states. LA and California are about being leaders in solving issues, not standing by on the sidelines. And as some of the largest employers in the area, the county and the state feel a moral obligation to assist our hardworking employees that they get a chance to achieve the American dream. Home ownership builds community and ensures that people are engaged and active citizens. As mentioned earlier, new taxes are never easy, and you may ask why we're promoting this when we have a homeless crisis on our hands in LA County. Measures H and HHH are making progress on that end, and while we work tirelessly on the issue of homelessness, we are ready to uplift others who are ready to take that next step of home ownership. And although the Community Real Estate Fund will not solve homelessness, it will really make a dent. And finally, I really want to thank the businesses here that are here today and applaud them for stepping up to bat for their employees. These employers are recognizing the good work of their employees and letting them know without a doubt that we thank you for your hard work, we want you to stay with the company, and you are part of the family. If large local employers like USC can step up, it would be a shame for the county, the city, and the state to stand on the wrong side of this issue. Thank you for all being here, and I'd like to take the stage back to Lori.
Thank you, Yoomee. Well, we're really excited to embark on this journey together towards more equitable home ownership. So as we shared some of the history of the discrimination and the passing of the Fair Housing Act and the continued need to have more equitable housing, we want to really work together with, and we welcome input and more additional partners to make the real estate fund happen now. And we are at our end, so with that, we just want to say that it's time to act for real equity and home ownership, and please support the Community Real Estate Fund. Build equity to get equity. Okay.